Cannabis saved my life. I was on antidepressants and I had used some hard drugs, and I've been through some serious trauma and grief and loss, and I've suffered, and cannabis has saved me.
Prohibition is an evil enterprise, and dedicated a lot of years of my life to fighting prohibition.
Dispensaries provide more of like a really personal touch to the patients, and that's something you don't really get if you were to go into the streets and go to like a back alley or in a staircase and make a purchase. You don't know what you're getting, for example. You don't really have that level of trust, that level of communication.
In Toronto, there are over 100 privately owned cannabis dispensaries currently operating. When legalization finally comes into effect, the Ontario government plans on opening 40 of their own stores throughout the entire province, which will be the only storefronts licensed to sell cannabis. This means that the people who rely on those over 100 privately owned dispensaries will have to find a new way to access their medicine.
When dispensaries were in operation, a lot of the accusations were that it's dirty dispensary weed, we don't know where it comes from. So a lot of dispensaries had to start testing their own product. We should start treating cannabis like any other food or drink or commodity, that we generally trust that it's safe, that the people who grow it do it for a reason. They want to make a good product, they want to make money, so therefore they're going to not kill or hurt their customers, they're going to do the right thing.
Recently, there was a case involving 2 Toronto police officers that allegedly consumed some cannabis edibles that were seized from a cannabis dispensary raid. And I'll just say this: if the products at dispensaries were so dangerous, why are even police officers consuming cannabis?
Everybody thinks that when you walk into a dispensary, it's just that guy just wants to get high and eat a bunch of food and veg out on the couch kind of thing, right? But like the reality is that people come in there either they need something for anxiety, they need something for depression, they smoke for like sleep, they smoke for creativity.
And we all know that grannies and grandpas across the country are looking for brownies before bed. They want to sleep well, they want their edibles, they want their oils and tinctures and cookies. And you know that a lot of hipster people in business and modern cooking and hospitality, I mean, pot is infiltrating everything. It's everywhere, it's mainstream. Dispensaries offer the consumer something very valuable, and that's the first-person interaction with the product. Going to a grocery store, you get to pick out what food you want and the right apple that looks better than the other. Cannabis should be the same way. But when government restricts the sale, that you can't look at the cannabis, you can't smell it, you can't touch it, it can't be in open containers, that denies the patients and the consumers the ability to choose the better product.
The illicit industry has strains that they've developed over the last 30 years that medical cannabis patients rely on for relief for their ailments. They like this sense of safety that occurs inside of a dispensary. This community, they like that and they deserve that.
The government is looking at cannabis right now as a cash cow that they can control and they can tax and they can manage all the numbers and details and make a bunch of money.
I think only to alcohol, there's no other industry where the government seeks to control not just production, but distribution and retail as well. That's a cartel.
The only way you can purchase or sell medicinal marijuana is through online channel, through licensed producers.
They can use brute force and coercion to try and make people buy their pot instead, but it's a terrible thing when a government has to use force against peaceful people.
The dispensary is shut down. The medical cannabis patients demand access to their storefront. It's a very Canadian form of defiance, but often the dispensaries will reopen in order to serve their patients. And while that's frustrating for law enforcement, ultimately it's of vital importance for medical cannabis patients who need to go there to access their medicine because the government's mail order program is not working.
As we move towards legalization, everyone can see that the medical marijuana producers are salivating over the recreational market. They think, oh, you know, we've got the medical and it's only worth this much and the recreational is this much, so let's go there and get all that. And it's like, you can't even supply all these guys.
In December of 2017, there were over 100,000 patients in Ontario registered to receive medicinal cannabis. In that same month, only about 50,000 shipments went out.
But at present, every time you shut a dispensary down, it's harder for medical cannabis patients to access their medicine of choice.
When I have to buy my licensed producer pot at 5 grams minimum, that's $50.
Maybe some people just need that 1 gram, spending that $10, and that gram can last them for the whole week. But here's the licensed producer saying, hey, you have to buy 5 of that before we even ship you anything out. And now people have to make a decision. Now, do I get my medicine or do I eat?
And then there's the 2 to 4 to 5 day wait for it to get to your door. So for someone who has epilepsy and they need to use just one little CBD cannabis gummy they want to chew on, how come they can't go get that from a dispensary that could provide it within half an hour? That's the access.
We need to get out there and start talking to members of provincial parliament, telling them that we want privately owned and operated storefront dispensaries.
If you engage with the political system and you tell them that you want some reform on this issue and it's really important to you, they start listening. You know, we're all on this bus going in some direction, and if we can just get our way to the front and whisper in the driver's ear which way to go, we can help have an impact. But if we just get off the bus and say, this sucks, we're not going to have any impact on where it goes.
Mm-hmm.